5 years ago, the day my water broke. The sharp, agonizing contractions rippled through my entire body. Shaking violently, I clutched my phone and called Adrian Vance, begging for help. "Adrian, the doctor says the baby is losing oxygen. Please, can you come to the hospital?" On the other end of the line, Adrian's voice was filled with nothing but cold impatience. "Having babies is what women are built for, Claire. You aren't going to die. Stop using these cheap tricks to get my attention. Chloe is terrified of thunderstorms. I have to be with her." The line went dead. I was wheeled into the operating room all alone. I bled out, and my baby suffocated to death. At that exact second, in the city's most expensive penthouse suite, he was in bed with his precious first love, Chloe Miller, wrapped in a passionate embrace, while I, completely alone, signed my own child's death certificate. Utterly devastated, I vanished from his world completely. 5 years later, Adrian showed up at my doorstep, holding a massive diamond ring. "Claire, let's get remarried. Let's start over, okay?" I didn't even spare him a glance. His eyes locked onto the little boy standing next to me, a boy who looked strikingly like me, and his voice began to tremble. "Since when did you have a child?" "This is our child from 5 years ago, isn't it?" Adrian recovered quickly, a confident smirk playing on his lips. "They all told me you had a miscarriage and the baby didn't survive. I didn't expect you to secretly raise my child. Claire, you really are still hopelessly in love with me." He was dressed in a tailored bespoke suit, holding a massive bouquet of white roses in one hand and a velvet ring box in the other. This scene looked exactly like the day he proposed to me 5 years ago. Adrian took a step forward and popped the ring box open. The massive diamond flashed blindingly under the hallway light. "I had this ring custom-made just for you." I stared at the diamond. 5 years ago, Adrian had dropped to one knee with a giant pink diamond ring. Back then, I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world. Only later did I find out that the pink diamond was never meant for me. It was the ring he had prepared to propose to Chloe with. But Chloe had thrown a tantrum back then and fled the country in a fit of rage. To spite Chloe, Adrian found me and slipped that ring onto my finger. I thought I had found true love, but in reality, I was just a pathetic substitute. When I signed the divorce papers and left the Vance estate, I left that ring on the master bedroom nightstand. I didn't take a single thing he ever bought me. Just like Adrian himself, I had long since thrown him out like trash. Seeing that I remained silent, Adrian frowned. "What? Still throwing a tantrum?" His tone carried a patronizing touch of indulgence. "It's been 5 years, Claire. You've had your fun. A woman can't live in her feelings forever." I almost laughed out loud from pure rage. 5 years had passed and he hadn't changed a bit. Always looking down on everyone, always assuming I couldn't live without him. Sensing the tense atmosphere, the little boy in my arms wrapped his arms tighter around my neck and whispered, "Mommy, who is he?" My little boy was beautiful, with thick eyelashes and soft, chubby cheeks. Especially his eyes, dark, bright, and intelligent. They looked exactly like mine did when I was a child. My heart softened, and I gently stroked his cheek. "Nobody, sweetie. Just an annoying stranger." Adrian's face darkened instantly. "Claire, I know you're still bitter. But think about it realistically. You're a divorced woman with a kid. You aren't getting any younger. Who else but me would ever want you?" Adrian seemed incredibly pleased with his own logic, his voice dripping with pity. "Besides, you don't even have a real career. You must have had a rough time these past few years after leaving me. Just come back with me now, and I'll let you be Mrs. Vance again." As he spoke, his eyes swept over my outfit. Today, I was just wearing a simple beige knit dress with no designer logos. So he naturally assumed I was living in poverty. I looked at him, suddenly tempted to ask where on earth he got this delusion. But I couldn't be bothered to waste my breath. "Actually, I'm doing great," I said calmly. "And this child is not yours." The smugness on Adrian's face vanished instantly, replaced by a dark scowl. "Not mine." He scoffed as if he had just heard the funniest joke. "Claire, how long has it been since you left me? If the kid isn't mine, whose could he possibly be?" He stepped closer, his burning gaze locking onto me. "Are you really making up a lie this ridiculous just to hurt me?" Before I could speak, a soft, delicate female voice echoed from the hallway stairs. "Claire, Adrian truly loves you. How can you break his heart like this?" I looked up. Chloe Miller was standing at the end of the hallway. She was wearing a flowing white dress, her long hair curled perfectly, her makeup flawless. Just like 5 years ago, she looked like a fragile little white flower that would shatter at the slightest breeze. And Adrian, of course, always fell for it. The moment I saw her, my stomach churned with pure disgust. Memories of that night 5 years ago flooded my mind, completely out of my control. I was lying in the hospital bed, fresh out of emergency surgery. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the pen when the nurse handed me my baby's death certificate. At that exact moment, Chloe had sent me a Snapchat video. In the dimly lit hotel suite, the sound of her soft moans filled the audio. Adrian was pressing her into the mattress, kissing her over and over. Chloe wrapped her arms around his neck, smiling mockingly at the camera. Adrian, isn't your wife giving birth right now? Adrian let out a low chuckle. Don't bring her up. She's a buzzkill. The video ended with the two of them tangled together, and I was left alone in a cold hospital bed, signing my baby's death certificate. Thinking about it now still made my fingers go numb with cold fury. Yet here was Chloe, still playing the innocent angel. Claire, Adrian has missed you so much over the years. He really loves you. Please stop throwing tantrums and just make up with him, okay? I looked at her coldly. Are you done? Chloe froze, clearly not expecting this reaction. Her eyes welled with tears instantly. Claire, are you still blaming me? What happened back then? I really didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want to hear another word. Today was Leo's vaccination appointment, and I wasn't going to waste my time. I turned around, holding my son close, and walked away. Adrian immediately chased after me. Wait! He reached out, trying to grab Leo. Give me my son. But Leo quickly hid his face in my neck, looking at him with deep suspicion. I don't know you. Go away. Adrian froze. He had probably never been rejected like this in his entire life. Suppressing his irritation, he tried to coo softly. Hey buddy, I'm your daddy. But Leo's eyes widened in anger. No, you're not. My daddy is super handsome. Not a weird uncle like you. Adrian's face turned completely black. Chloe chimed in with her sweet, whiny voice. Claire, how can you teach the child to talk like that? Even if you and Adrian are divorced, he is still Adrian's son. I finally lost my patience. I said. This child is not his. With that, I carried Leo straight down the stairs. A taxi happened to be parked by the curb. I pulled the door open and climbed in. The children's hospital, please, I told the driver. The car slowly pulled away. Through the rearview mirror, I could see Adrian standing on the pavement, his expression incredibly dark. Chloe stood beside him, gently wrapping her arm around his. I looked away, feeling nothing but exhaustion. Leo snuggled into my chest and asked softly, Mommy, why did that uncle say he's my daddy? I patted his head. Because he got the wrong person, sweetie. Oh, the little guy was quickly distracted by the view outside the window. Mommy, look. A giant yellow duck. I looked in the direction he was pointing. Suddenly, the deafening screech of brakes echoed through the air. Crash. A violent impact slammed into us, throwing me hard against the front seat. The world spun wildly, and the air was filled with terrified screams. By the time I realized what had happened, the taxi had flipped onto its side. Shattered glass littered the road, and the thick metallic smell of blood filled the air. My head was spinning painfully, but my survival instinct screamed one thing. Find my son. Leo. Leo. My little boy was pinned near the seat, his face deadly pale, his forehead covered in blood. Mommy. His voice was so weak I could barely hear it. My blood ran cold. Help. Please, someone save my son. Half an hour later, outside the emergency room, I stood drenched in blood, my hands trembling uncontrollably. I could still feel Leo's tiny hand clutching mine before he was wheeled in. He had whispered, Mommy, it hurts. My heart felt like it was being ripped out. Just then, hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway. Adrian and Chloe had actually followed us to the hospital. Chloe looked pale, her face twisted into a mask of deep concern. Claire, how is the baby? Is he going to be okay? I stared at her, my mind flashing back to the truck that had suddenly lost control and rammed into us. It was too coincidental. So coincidental that it was impossible not to suspect her. I stepped toward her, one agonizing step at a time. Chloe, did you arrange this? Chloe stiffened. What? My eyes were bloodshot, my voice shaking with rage. The car crash. Did you plan this? Chloe's face went completely white. In the next second, she collapsed to her knees with a loud thud. No, it wasn't me. Claire, how could you think I would hurt a child? I would never. She sobbed hysterically, tears streaming down her face. To anyone else, it looked like I was mercilessly bullying her. Adrian immediately frowned and pulled her up from the floor. Claire, calm down. You have no proof. How dare you accuse Chloe like this? I looked at the way he shielded Chloe. It was incredibly ironic. 5 years ago, it was like this. 5 years later, it was still the same. As long as Chloe shed a single tear, Adrian would always take her side. My voice shook. My son is lying in there, fighting for his life. Besides her, I can't think of anyone else who could be this evil. Chloe cried even harder. Claire, I really didn't do it. I know you hate me, but you can't accuse me of this. What happened back then, it was my fault. I was jealous of you. I was wrong. I apologize. But I swear this crash had nothing to do with me. Please believe me. Her fragile, helpless act easily triggered any man's protective instincts. Adrian wrapped his arm around her protectively and turned to me, his tone harsh. That's enough. Chloe already apologized. What more do you want? Claire, when did you become so hysterical? Chloe has always been fragile. She wouldn't even step on an ant. How could you accuse her of attempted murder? Your mental state is extremely unstable right now. Calm down. Looking at the two of them, one a hypocrite, the other blind, I felt utterly disgusted. I stared straight at him. Adrian, do you want to know something? The thing I find most disgusting about you isn't your infidelity. It's your sheer stupidity. His face twisted in anger. What did you say? I stepped closer to Chloe, my voice ice cold. If this was you, Chloe, I swear to God, I will kill you myself. Terrified by the look in my eyes, Chloe shrank back. Adrian immediately blocked her. Claire, what kind of madness is this? Before the tension could boil over, the emergency room doors swung open. The doctor rushed out. Who are the child's guardians? I ran forward. I am. Adrian was right behind me. I am too. I'm his father. The doctor pulled off his mask, his expression grave. The patient has lost a lot of blood and needs an immediate transfusion. However, he has O-negative blood, and our blood bank is critically low right now. My heart plummeted. I'm type O. The doctor glanced at me. Mother's blood type alone isn't enough. We need to screen for compatibility quickly. Is the father here? We need him to do a blood match immediately. Take my blood, Adrian demanded, rolling up the sleeve of his custom-tailored Italian shirt with an air of aristocratic self-importance. I'm his father. Screen it immediately. I don't care how much it costs, just give him whatever he needs. The head nurse quickly escorted Adrian to the prep station beside the trauma bay. Chloe stood behind him, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, casting fleeting, uneasy glances down the corridor toward the hospital entrance. I stood frozen against the wall, my knuckles white as I clutched the edge of the nurse's station counter. Blood from the accident was drying on my knit dress, stiff and cold against my skin. 5 minutes later, the lab technician walked out of the rapid testing booth, holding a laminated clipboard. He looked at the charts, then looked up at Adrian with a bewildered frown. Sir, are you sure you're this child's biological father? Adrian's chest swelled with irritation. Of course I am. What kind of ridiculous question is that? Just start the transfusion. We can't, the technician said flatly. Your blood type is AB positive. You are an absolute biological mismatch for this child. Adrian froze. What did you say? The patient is type O negative, the technician explained, tapping the paper. A parent with type AB blood cannot produce a child with type O blood under any genetic scenario. Furthermore, your Rh factor is positive. If we put your blood into that boy, the hemolytic reaction would kill him within minutes. The silence in the corridor turned suffocating. Adrian stood with his sleeve still rolled up, his arm pale under the fluorescent lights. His mouth opened, closed, and then opened again. He slowly turned his head to stare at me. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, and filled with a wild, vibrating frenzy. AB positive. Adrian muttered, the words catching in his throat like dry ash. I may be positive. He took 3 heavy, stumbling steps toward me, his hands trembling as he reached out to grab my shoulders. Claire, who is his father? His voice broke into a harsh, ragged rasp. Whose child is that in there? Who did you sleep with? I slapped his hands away with enough force to leave red marks across his skin. I told you 3 times today, Adrian. I said, my voice ice cold. He is not yours. He was never yours. Now get out of my way. No. That's impossible. Adrian roared, his pride shattering in real time, his polished facade cracking into pieces. 5 years ago, you left me. You were pregnant with my baby. You told everyone the baby died, but you ran away to raise him alone. How could he not be mine? Because your baby did die, Adrian, I said, leaning in until my eyes pinned him to the floor. He suffocated in my womb while you were kissing Chloe in a penthouse suite. You signed away your right to ever be a father the second you hung up that phone 5 years ago. Adrian staggered backward as if struck by a physical hammer. Before he could speak, the heavy glass double doors at the end of the emergency wing burst open. The sound of disciplined, rapid footsteps echoed down the hallway. A dozen men in tailored black suits swept into the corridor, forming an impenetrable security perimeter. Behind them walked 6 senior medical specialists in white lab coats, carrying portable cryopreservation blood transport cases marked with the international red emblem. And leading them was a man whose presence instantly drained the air from the room. He wore a dark charcoal 3-piece suit beneath a long cashmere overcoat. His frame was tall, broad-shouldered, and commanding. His features were carved from sharp, unforgiving granite, with piercing slate-gray eyes that radiated absolute authority. Alexander Sterling, the supreme chairman of the Sterling Global Maritime Consortium, the man who controlled half the commercial shipping lanes across the Pacific, and the quiet powerhouse who operated in the stratosphere of international finance where men like Adrian Vance weren't even permitted to buy a seat at the table. When Chloe saw him, she gasped, stumbling backward until her spine hit the wall. Alexander didn't look at Adrian. He didn't look at Chloe. He walked straight toward me. The moment he stopped in front of me, the terrifying coldness on his face melted into an ocean of deep, aching tenderness. He shed his cashmere coat, gently, wrapping it around my shivering, blood-stained shoulders and pulled me into his chest. "I'm here, Claire," Alexander whispered into my hair, his large hand cradling the back of my head. "I'm here. You're safe. The dam broke." The tears I had fought so hard to suppress finally spilled over, soaking into his silk tie. "Alexander." I choked out. "His blood." "The private medical chopper just landed on the roof," Alexander said softly, cupping my tear-stained face in his warm palms. "I brought 2 units of O-negative from our family reserve and DR. Morrison is taking over the surgery. Right now. Our boy is going to be completely fine." He turned to the head surgeon behind him. "Morrison. Save my son." "Understood, Chairman." The surgeon bowed, taking the blood transport case and rushing into the operating theater with his team. Across the hallway, Adrian stood frozen like a statue. His eyes darted from Alexander's hand on my waist to the ring on Alexander's left finger, a platinum band that matched the simple platinum ring I wore on a chain around my neck. "Alexander Sterling." Adrian stammered, his voice trembling so violently he could barely form the syllables. "You're Claire's?" Alexander turned his head slowly. The gentleness vanished from his eyes, replaced by a gaze so glacial, so full of lethal disgust, that Adrian instinctively took half a step back. "I am her husband," Alexander said. His voice was quiet, but it vibrated with the weight of an approaching storm. "And you are the coward who abandoned her to die 5 years ago." Adrian's face had drained of every drop of color. He looked between Alexander and me, his mind desperately trying to assemble a reality that didn't destroy his ego. "Husband?" Adrian whispered. "No. That's impossible. Claire, you were married to me. You loved me. How could you be with Alexander Sterling?" Claire was the lead maritime logistics architect for my family's European division 4 years ago, Alexander said, stepping between me and Adrian, shielding me entirely from Adrian's sight. "She built an empire with her own intellect while you were squandering your father's inheritance to buy designer trinkets for a cheap parasite." Chloe flinched, tears instantly welling in her eyes as she tried to step forward. "Mr. Sterling, please don't say that about me," Chloe whimpered, clutching Adrian's arm. "Adrian and I are innocent. We just came to check on the baby." "Silence," Alexander commanded. He didn't shout. He simply spoke the word, and the sheer authority behind it choked the breath right out of Chloe's throat. Alexander gestured with his left hand. His chief of security, Vance, no relation to Adrian's bankrupt lineage, stepped forward carrying a tablet and a manila folder. "Chairman," the security director reported crisply. "The driver of the dump truck that struck Miss Claire's taxi was apprehended 3 blocks from the scene. He attempted to flee on foot." Chloe's hands began to shake violently. "The driver's name is Thomas Miller," the security director continued, opening the folder. "He is the maternal first cousin of Chloe Miller." The words dropped into the corridor like lead weights. Adrian's head jerked toward Chloe. "What?" "Furthermore," the director continued, tapping the tablet and playing an audio recording through the speaker, "at 1:15 p.m. today, 20 minutes before Miss Claire left her apartment, an encrypted wire transfer of $50,000 was sent from a Swiss bank account registered to Chloe Miller to Thomas Miller's offshore account." A recorded phone call played loudly over the speaker. "Thomas, are you sure about this? It's broad daylight." Chloe's voice. "Just hit the side of the cab. Make sure the kid doesn't survive. If that bastard child disappears, Claire won't have any leverage to crawl back into Adrian's life." The audio ended. The corridor was deathly silent. Adrian looked down at Chloe. For 5 years, he had defended this woman against the world. He had treated her like a porcelain doll that would shatter in the wind. He had convinced himself that she was an innocent angel who needed his eternal protection. Now, listening to her voice casually ordering the execution of a 4-year-old child, the illusion shattered into millions of jagged, bloody shards. "Chloe," Adrian whispered, his eyes wide with horror. You hired a truck to kill a baby." "No. Adrian, it's fake." Chloe screamed, dropping to her knees, grabbing Adrian's trousers with manic desperation. "They fabricated the audio. Alexander Sterling has too much power. He's framing me because he hates you. Adrian, you know me. I wouldn't even hurt a stray cat. Please believe me." "Shut up," Adrian choked out. "Adrian, please." "I said shut up." Adrian roared, kicking his leg back, violently throwing Chloe off him. Chloe crashed onto the linoleum floor, her perfect curls coming undone, her designer dress tearing at the seam. Four plainclothes detectives from the Special Investigations Bureau walked through the double doors, badges held high. Chloe Miller? The lead detective said, stepping over to her. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, attempted murder of a minor, and reckless vehicular assault. Place your hands behind your back. Chloe wailed, thrashing on the floor as the cold steel handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Adrian, save me. Tell them I'm innocent. Adrian. Adrian didn't move. He stood frozen, staring down at the woman he had traded his entire life for, looking as if he were about to vomit. As the police dragged Chloe away, Alexander's security director turned another page in the manila folder. There is one more item, Chairman, the director said, glancing at Adrian with cold contempt. Regarding the events of 5 years ago at St. Jude's maternity ward. Adrian's breath hitched in his throat. What about 5 years ago? When Miss Claire was admitted in active labor during the severe storm, the director read from a sworn affidavit. The attending obstetrician ordered an emergency C-section within 20 minutes due to acute fetal distress. However, the night supervisor, Nurse Brenda Walsh, delayed the surgical theater prep by 2 hours, claiming the surgeon was delayed by road closures. The director looked up, staring directly into Adrian's bloodshot eyes. Nurse Walsh submitted a sworn deposition 2 hours ago. 5 years ago, Chloe Miller paid her $25,000 in cash to deliberately delay Claire's surgery until the fetus suffered irreversible hypoxic brain death. Adrian's knees buckled. He hit the floor with a sickening thud, his hands catching his weight against the cold tiles. What? Adrian gasped, clawing at his chest as if he couldn't get air into his lungs. What did you say? Chloe knew you were on the fence about returning to the hospital that night. The director stated with clinical brutality. She knew that if Claire successfully delivered your son, you would never divorce her. So she ensured that the baby died before you could ever hold him. No. No, God, no. Adrian wept, slamming his forehead against the floorboards. The memories rushed back into his skull like white-hot needles. Claire on the phone sobbing, begging him to come because the baby was losing oxygen. Chloe whining beside him in the penthouse, pretending to be terrified of the thunder, wrapping her arms around his waist. His own voice sneering. Having babies is what women are built for, Claire. Stop using these cheap tricks to get my attention. He had killed his own son. Not metaphorically. He had personally chosen the woman who orchestrated the execution of his firstborn child, stayed in bed with her, embraced her, bought her jewelry, and defended her against the grieving mother for half a decade. I killed him. Adrian sobbed, tears and saliva dripping onto the hospital floor. I killed my own boy. I walked over to where he knelt, stopping 2 feet away. Adrian looked up, his face twisted in pure, unadulterated agony, his hands reaching out toward the hem of my coat. Claire. He wept, his voice completely broken. Claire, forgive me, please. God, forgive me. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know she was a monster. I looked down at him. I remembered the 5 years of nightmares. I remembered waking up in cold sweats, feeling the phantom weight of an empty nursery. I remembered the 5 years of rebuilding my mind, piece by agonizing piece, with Alexander by my side. I will never forgive you, Adrian, I said, my voice clear and steady. Because your sin wasn't ignorance. Your sin was arrogance. You chose to be blind because it fed your pathetic vanity to have 2 women fighting for your scraps. I took a step back, letting his hands fall empty onto the cold floor. You deserve every second of the hell you are about to live in. The red light above the operating theater clicked off. The doors swung open, and Dr. Morrison walked out, pulling down his surgical mask with a tired, victorious smile. The hemorrhage has been completely controlled, Dr. Morrison announced. The skull fracture was hairline, no intracranial bleeding. The transfusion was 100% successful. The boy is stable, resting, and will make a complete recovery within 2 weeks. I collapsed against Alexander's chest, weeping with overwhelming relief. Alexander held me tightly, kissing the crown of my head, his own eyes glistening with unshed tears. Thank you, Morrison, Alexander said softly. Adrian tried to crawl toward the operating room doors, whispering Leo's name, but Alexander's security guard stepped forward, blocking him like an iron wall. Get him out of my sight, Alexander ordered without looking back. And execute the divestment protocol on Vance Holdings. Understood, Chairman. Within 48 hours, the Vance family empire ceased to exist. Alexander Sterling did not merely cancel contracts, he activated the debt default covenants on every major loan the Vance Group held across North America and Europe. By Monday morning, the Vance Group stock plunged 84% on the open market. Adrian's father, realizing his son's crimes had brought the wrath of the Sterling Consortium down upon their family, suffered a massive stroke and formally disinherited Adrian from the family trust before entering emergency care. Chloe Miller was denied bail and charged with capital conspiracy to commit murder, facing a mandatory sentence of 35 years to life in a maximum security state penitentiary. Adrian Vance was evicted from the penthouse suite, his personal accounts frozen under pending civil wrongful death litigation filed by my legal team for the murder of my first child 5 years ago. Adrian was left with nothing. No money, no company, no family, only a cardboard box of personal belongings and the eternal, suffocating realization that he had handed his own paradise over to another man while he danced with the devil who murdered his legacy. 2 months later, the private garden of the Sterling estate in Carmel by the sea was drenched in warm afternoon sunlight. The air smelled of blooming jasmine, salt spray from the ocean cliff below, and fresh-baked lemon cookies. Mommy, look at the airplane. Leo came running across the lush green lawn, holding a wooden toy glider above his head. His cheeks were round and rosy, his forehead completely healed, leaving only a tiny, faint mark hidden beneath his thick brown hair. I knelt on the grass, catching him in my arms as he collided with me, giggling wildly. Did Daddy help you build the wings? I asked, kissing his chubby cheek. Yes. Daddy said we can fly a real one next summer. Leo beamed, pointing his little finger toward the terrace. Alexander walked down the stone steps, wearing a soft cream-colored sweater and dark trousers, holding 2 glasses of fresh lemonade. He set the glasses on the garden table, walked over to us, and lifted Leo onto his broad shoulders with an easy, practiced strength. Leo squealed with delight, holding onto Alexander's hair as if he were riding atop the highest mountain in the world. How is my little captain doing? Alexander asked, looking up at our son with an adoration that filled every corner of his eyes. Ready for takeoff, Daddy. Leo cheered. Alexander smiled, then turned his gaze down to me, extending his hand. I took it, letting him pull me to my feet. He wrapped his free arm around my waist, pulling me gently against his side as we looked out over the endless blue horizon of the Pacific Ocean. The shadows of 5 years ago were gone. The cold hospital room, the phantom cries in the dark, the man who thought he could buy my soul with a hollow ring. All of it had burned away into dust swept out to sea by the clean, untamable ocean wind. I rested my head against Alexander's shoulder, listening to the steady, powerful rhythm of his heartbeat and the bright, joyful laughter of our boy echoing into the sky. I was home, and for the first time in my life, the road ahead was filled with nothing but light.